Hey, we got an amazing guest today, Paul McCarthy, Cognitive Collie. If you haven't checked it out, he's got some great stuff to share with us today. And I tell you, I'm on his topic because I'm 67 years old, and part of my issue is I've got two parents. One had dementia; he passed away. My mother has dementia. Great physical shape, but so I'm going to be like all ears today because I want to find out ways again how I can put myself in a better position to avoid being like my mom. I mean, who's, like I said, perfect health, but she can't remember something 10 minutes ago, or if I call her on the phone the next day, she doesn't even remember. And what's really sad, I went up to Washington to see her this past summer, and she doesn't even remember I came. Made all that journey up there, so pretty sad. So Paul, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here.
I've got a ton of questions for you today, so I'm grilling you, brother.
I'm open.
No, first off, I want to say if you know nothing about Paul, you really need to check him out, especially if you're a martial artist. And I'm not going to paint him into a corner, but just Kali. He does everything, but it's really something that has interested me so much ever since I've actually met you, and the way that you've put it together. But I don't know. One of my big questions are, did Kali bring you to currently what you're doing now, or is it vice versa the other way? I'm not clear on that.
Oh, that's a great question. You know what? No one's ever asked me that before. And fortunately, I've got a great answer because I mentioned earlier, I'm redoing websites, getting a bit of a redo. And one of the things they wanted me to do was tell the story. And I hadn't done that very well before. I just said, hey, cognitive Kali is this. And we did a little research at UCLA. But when I actually sat down and thought about it, I realized that I'd been doing this for a while. Then the name comes along, right? It's like Bruce Lee and Jeet Kune Do. He'd been doing, like, if you got the Tao of Kung Fu, Bruce Lee's book, and you read it and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I know as Jeet Kune Do. And then the name came out of it. So my training started at Indiana University. That's when I first started learning about Filipino martial arts. My first class actually was modern arnis under the Remy Presas line. And a lot of left versus right, tapi, very stick trapping type stuff, a lot of cold disarms and that kind of stuff. And it was absolutely a brain scrambler because all I'd been before is pretty much a striker and a few throws from some other arts and things like that. And this was just totally different. And I couldn't, and I felt I thought I was pretty good before. How many times we had that in our careers, right? I thought I was pretty good. And then I went to the Inosanto Academy. I thought I was pretty good, and then I saw this guy train.
I think we all did.
That was a huge moment for me because I was like, I can't get this. But it wasn't I wasn't strong enough, or I wasn't agile enough, or wasn't coordinated enough. I just couldn't figure it out up here. So that probably was a trigger. What happened after Indiana, I was very fortunate to be able to train a lot there, but I wasn't fortunate enough to be able to stay. I was on visas at the time. And I had to get a full-time job. And my first full-time job in the US was at Florida Gulf Coast University down in Fort Myers. And there was nowhere I didn't find anywhere to train. I've heard about people that are down there now. And I'm like, oh, I wish I knew you when I lived there. But I had nowhere to train. So I just started teaching. I thought, I've got to train. I got to keep sharp. I'll teach some folks and I'll try and get them up to speed so that I can at least maintain my skill level. And there was one gentleman, Jeremy Howard, who helped me out with the club and everything like that. And we would do, so that's why I mentioned the Inosanto Academy. So I'll get to that at the end. Remind me at the end. We would do the 4 or 5 drills that I knew at the time. So the main class I took was actually called Intro to Stick Arts, taught by Patrick Kelly at Indiana University. He's a kind of a PFS, Jason Winkle under Larry Hartzell kind of guy. And it was, the hardest thing I think in the class was Sombrada. That was most tricky. And then the Heaven Six. And I remember seeing reverse six, back. That was really tough. And then some high-low highs, a lot of cob, all the basics. And so that's what I had. So that's all I had. I didn't know anything else. So eventually, after I got him up to speed with those drills, we'd be like, right, let's do cob, high-low high, Heaven Six, Standard Six, Earth Six, 3 times through without making a mistake. And we weren't allowed to go home until we'd done that. And we'd get to the freaking, I'm going to try and keep the language clean here. I would get right to the end of that 3rd round and we'd mess up on the last strike, and we'd be like, oh, but we held to it. We're like, no, we have to hit this. And that was the beginning of it, really. It's like taking the drills and making them into, modifying, adapting, whatever, sequencing, stringing them together so that it's challenging this, right? It's not just like, we knew the drills. If we just kept doing the drills, we might have been able to do them faster, maybe more powerfully, right? Might have made them to look a little better, but that wasn't challenging the brain. And that's kind of the start of where I started to think about it. And then came to UCLA, and that was the funny thing. My first Carly class at the Inosanto Academy with Guru Dan. We get in, he comes out, we start doing cob, start doing high, low, high, and I'm like, yep, all over this. Ooh, yeah, I got this. About 5 minutes in, he goes, right, warm-up's finished. And I was like, warm-up? What else is there? Because I didn't know. And then the world exploded, right? So I got to see the rest of the world of Carly, or I have seen a little slice of it so far.
Yeah, when I first started with him, I thought he was going to be so impressed with me. I thought I had stuff down, and it was pretty much like, get out of here. I knew nothing. I just felt, it's humbling. So that brought you to kinesiology, did it? Or
well, kinesiology, I guess, was that's I've been doing since I was 15. So in England, you can, in England you can leave school at 16, right? And that's it.
My question is, all right, so did you just find the Filipino martial arts, or did kinesiology find it for you? Is that something you actively looked for? In other words, it was like, all right, this is explaining what I've been doing, the trade that I'm going after, kinesiology. This art, I don't know what it would be, explains it or exemplifies my point.
No, I think I definitely wasn't looking for it, because back then, Indiana, we're talking like 2003 or 4. I just kind of I've just started my graduate studies in kinesiology. I finished my undergraduate in 2000, and I really wasn't that interested. As a young 20-year-old,
oh, wow.
I was in the U.S. because I was traveling around, and my van broke down in Bloomington, Indiana. That's the only reason I went to Indiana University.
That's awesome.
Wow. But so yeah, I think what happened was that from then on, I was taking all the martial arts classes at Indiana, plus all my grad classes. So I was starting to get into a much deeper way than undergraduate about motor learning, about the kinesiology. That was my degree. I did 2 master's degrees in kinesiology at Indiana, and the motor learning was the big piece. And I had some great professors and some great friends, actually, Tom Parry, Olav Krigolson, who's one of my neuroscience advisors now, who majored in motor learning, and I was really interested in it. But even then, I still wasn't interested enough as them. They are now like doctors and professors. I didn't want to go that route. I was much more interested in applying. So rather than continuing down the research, I was like, I just want to do this. And then I started managing sports programs and things like that. And then Carly was kind of always from that time, 2003 onwards, always in the background. And then when we started looking at the research, that was at UCLA. And actually, Dr. Jay O'Shea at UCLA was the one that combined with me and the neuroscience department to do that small study there.
So you got involved with a lot of athletes also at UCLA.
Yeah, that was an academy connection. I'm sitting in the dorm in the dining hall at UCLA, and I tell you what, I've lost this jacket, and it hurts because it was my first jacket from the academy, and I don't know where it is. But I was wearing my jacket, the zip-up hoodie with the logo, and this giant Thor. Actually, his son's name is Thor, but this giant man, Eric, came over and was like, "Hey, my son trains at that academy." He recognized it. And I was like, "Oh, cool. Yeah, I trained with Guru Dan." And he was like, "You should train the football team." And I was like, "Okay." And he was the videographer. Like, they did the editing of the video and all that stuff. So he made the connection with Angus McClure, and we got involved. We trained them for 4 years, 2012 through 2016. So that was that. And then we jumped onto the water polo team right after that with basically the same connection.
Wow. But let me ask you, Paul, because I work with the Seattle Seahawks, 3 different seasons, 2 different coaches. And because I saw you talked a little bit about, Heaven 6, using that for athletes. I found those to be just great drills, and I incorporated some Wing Chun also. But what did you specifically use, and how did you? I guess what you probably should do is just give us a quick overview for our audience. What is cognitive Kali? What is it doing for people?
Yeah, that's a great way. Let's start with what it's not. There's not a curriculum I guess yet. Everything that I use is pretty much what I've learned from my karate instructors or my martial arts instructors, essentially. I would call it more of a method, right? Can you give me a drill? Like you have a drill, like I was learning some new drills from Ron the other day in Lamego, which is not a system I've delved into. But if you take some of those drills, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply the cognitive karate method to it. And that method is based in pedagogical methods, the science of teaching, kinesiology, motor learning, and neuroscience, so which is not something that I am qualified or experienced in. I'm not a professor in it. I don't have qualifications in it, but I have neuroscience advisors. We have chats all the time, and I'm like, hey, what do you think of this drill? And then they tell me the science behind it, and that's kind of that's how we roll that in together. So if you see a lot of scientific stuff on the website, all those terms, everything has been sent to even the TED Talk.
Rather than me talk more about Kali, I'd like to show you more. I think that'll be a lot more exciting, even with my accent. So let's bring Guro Conrad, Guro Roland back up. So they're going to do 5 motions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's the code, and it starts with basic and gets a little bit more complex. So as they go, it's cob, cob, now they're crossing the midline, going to the low line, that heaven 6 we already saw, and standard 6. Time. Good job. Yes. So for them, that's a well-known motion. They've done it thousands of times. It's part of our warm-up in class. So we need to challenge them. So instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as the code, why don't we try, and this was random, we didn't practice this, 2, 1, 3, 4, 1. Time. Good job. Yes. So while that was still very good, did you see it kind of slow down a little bit as they were processing the code? Let's just make it harder for them, because I think that's fun. This time I'm going to give them the first number, and they're going to start. And halfway through the motion, I'll give them the next number, and then the next, and then the next. Yes, it's pretty impressive. So we'll start with number 4. 2, 1, 5, 6. You gotta give me a minute on that one. So when I said 6, it's not part of the code. There's no movement associated with that. They were meant to improvise. I was expecting more Kali. But I think if we get #RunningManUCLA going, this might go viral.
Like the TED Talk was very different before I sent it to Dr. Krugolson. And he's like, can't say that, you can't say that, that's not true. But he was like, you can say this, you can say this, and this is what I think you were trying to say. And I was like, yeah, that's it, nailed it. So it's good to have those super professionals in that field, because it's not my field. But definitely the pedagogical method of what I do every week, we have a class on Sundays. I use it with both of my private clients right now. That method is very key. And that kind of lives in this amalgamation of those topics. And so, and to simplify that, it's modifying cognitive load. And when we talk about cognitive load, how complicated something is, again, from a brain perspective, as opposed to how difficult it is to swing fast or anything. We talk about fitness principles, agility, coordination, balance, power, reaction time. Those are kind of very physical. We're talking about how can we process this information a little bit faster, a little bit better, to be more efficient at this. And the job really is, as soon as so if I'm training you, Cliff, and I see you get a drill down, then I'm adding cognitive load. I don't want you to look good at this drill. I want you to live right at the top of it, where there's a couple of mistakes, but you pick them up real fast. And we can, different zones or different terms you can use is the zone when we talk about athletes, or this new one called flow state. And that's a big part of kind of brainwaves and things like that. So that's kind of like an overview of what cognitive karate is. It's a movement methodology based in pedagogy, neuroscience, kinesiology, and motor learning. So you mentioned you've been training the Seattle Seahawks, and that's been going well.
Well, I did it in the 80s, 86, 92, and 93. And,
awesome.
so I had a great time. And it was fun being able to, Ron, test some of your stuff with big guys, because you kind of know what works and doesn't, right? You go, oh, man, there's a big guy.
That's the one. That's one. I wish I was too busy trying to think. I was trying to help them out and really try to impress the coaches. But afterwards, and especially as we did it for 4 years, I was like, wow, this is a great testing platform for the stuff, right? And one of the best things had nothing to do with Carly. It had nothing to do with the training of the players. We got, and I'm not going to remember his name. We got a superstar player. We recruited. Angus McClure was a top recruiter for UCLA, and he recruited this guy, and he was committed to Notre Dame, and he switched, or he quit that and came to us, which was a bit of a hoo-ha because he'd already committed. And he was a top player. Eddie, his first name was Eddie. It'll probably come to me later. But he comes in and it's kind of that with that swagger we were talking about before. And he comes in and sees me, and he kind of heard about me, and he's like, "Oh, you must be the ninja guy." And all the other players have been training me for a while, sitting down there. And I think they were kind of like smirking a little bit. Maybe they set it up. This guy comes at me and he's like, "What would you do if I did this?" And he's 350 pounds, 6'2", 4", something like that. Well, it was all the D-line that I trained. And he came at me, and there was no way I was trying to do a Hubert Passover. I think I can remember it distinctly. I was right lead forward, and he came at me, and I switched, and I nailed him right on the right in the crown jewels, like on the tip, and dropped him. And the players over here, they are just rolling around laughing, and I was like, man, okay, well that works.
Yeah.
But it had nothing to do with my curriculum. I was training him a lot of Hubert, a lot of hand-to-hand, the pummeling stuff, because it was D-line. It's all CQB stuff. So definitely kicking him in the groin.
I hate to put it this way. Did he take it well?
I was a little unsure. I was kind of like, I was checking my exits, making sure I could get away. I'm very dangerous over short distances. I can sprint. And then I was worried because he wasn't getting up. I was like, hey, coaches are coming. Come on. I was like, coaches are coming. I was trying to pick him up again. He was fine, obviously. But
what's interesting, Paul? I started like, hey, guys, we're going to start boxing. I bought the boxing gloves. And I was like, because I wanted to see how everything worked around these huge guys, right? And I remember like one of the players, and you think, and these guys are hitting all the time. They're getting hit. But he was like really afraid to get in the face. And so he would stall and start talking, ask me all these questions. And I go, come on, let's spar, right? And that year we had Ray Roberts, and he was the rookie. And this guy had like 7 feet was his arm, fingertip to fingertip, Ron. And Larry, I would like box him and literally would have to run in and get close and run out because I was so afraid of his reach coming in, and you're going, wow, and some people go, well, what does that have to do with this with football? I'm like, yeah, it's timing. It's all that. And I just wanted to see how would it work against the guys like this, right? So yeah, it was fun. It was a great time. Larry, have anything you want to jump in and add?
Yeah, it was really cool. We got done eating dinner last night, and I'd already watched the TED Talk, but I was like, I had my 2 daughters with me and my wife, and I said, you guys got to watch this. I said, I'm going to be talking to this gentleman tomorrow, and I said, it's just really cool. And so they watched it, and they were all from 11, 16 to my wife, was just glued to it, which was really cool. And my wife actually brought up a really cool question. So based on a lot of the stuff that you've seen, through testing cognitive Collie, how often do you think, let's say how many days per week and for how many weeks, or how often would somebody, maybe that's not like all of us, we're kind of martial arts geeks, right? We love it and just do it every day, which is cool. But the average person, what have you seen as far as working with them with cognitive Collie?
Well, I'll start that off by saying that I wish that I wish I didn't have a full-time job and a little 3-year-old boy and several other jobs and things like that, and I could just study this all day long, and I had the resources to do it, and the space and the money and all that. Unfortunately, I don't, and it's frustrating because I have to rely on other folks. I keep having to push, and hey, we're going to do a Collie study. We're going to do a Collie study, and there's a couple things happening, and that's cool. The study that we did at UCLA, though, this was 2014. We talk about it a little bit. There's a video that's out there. It's on my website right now, cognitivecollie.com, somewhere if you can find it. I kind of mentioned I'm redoing the website, but it was at the Exercise in the Brain Symposium 2014 at UCLA. So you Google that, you might be able to find that kind of stuff. And this was, they invited us, we were literally just finishing the study when this was happening, and they'd heard about it. So they brought us the demo. And I had some great folks demoing. Elaine Rono, who's an old school Inosanto Academy guy.
I know Elaine.
You know Elaine, right? So he's doing demo with Guru Anna, and it looks great. It's fantastic. And we talk about that study a little bit there. What that doesn't show, and was really unfortunate, is we had a lot of attrition in that study. So we did the study over the summer, and students who were finishing their classes just bounced, just went home. They were like, "We're finished with class. I'm doing this study, but I don't really care that much." You know, we weren't paying them anything to do it. So unfortunately, we weren't able to publish any results. We had really promising raw data though. So, you know, if you follow research methods, raw data can look good. Basically, any data can look good. You can manipulate data to say kind of whatever you want, really. That's why peer-reviewed publications are very important, because you have to run it through statistics to see whether it's statistically significant. We couldn't do that with this data. We didn't have enough people, therefore enough data to do that. The one big thing that with Dr. Robert Bilder from UCLA saw and was like, wow, this would have been cool to really flush out, was mental rotation. And the best way I can kind of like talk about mental rotation, if you've seen it on some tests before, there's 4 little blocks, usually like cuboid type blocks, and then there's one down here, and you have to tell which one is this one down here, but it's just rotated in a different way. You kind of know what I'm talking about, those tests. That's kind of basic mental rotation. If you think about it, especially with disarms, you know, you do your cadena real into over the top, over the bottom. We got a lot of mental rotation, and they saw a lot of that kind of data in there. So, but with that, you know, that's the raw data. Coming back even further, my personal experience from that. So I taught the intervention. We had a control group doing regular exercise, some kind of conditioning, and I was teaching the Kali. And I wish I'd taken photos. I used a whiteboard to come up with the lesson plans. I wish I'd taken photos of them, because like we were coming up with some really cool stuff. I'd come up with a lesson plan, and I'd run over to everyone and go, "Hey, can we do this?" We needed to make sure we could demo it, because I was trying to make it more complex. Those training sessions were 3 times a week, an hour and 15, which I think actually made a bit of a difference. How many times we take hour classes, right? Sometimes even 45-minute classes. Over the COVID, I've seen 30-minute classes. The MKG group have been doing a 30-minute international class every day, I think, for a long period. But hour and 15, I thought that made a big difference. I've been teaching for a very long time. I've been teaching movement for a very long time. And these people were completely naive to martial arts, picking up a stick and just no idea. And by the end of it, I'm not sure if you guys have ever tried this, but we were able to get most of them doing Heaven 6 with hourglass footwork. So I got to get it started, right? There we go. So hourglass footwork in partners doing Heaven 6. So you got to be in time with each other. That's really tough to do. We spent a lot of time practicing ourselves. But in 3 weeks, 3 times a week, hour and 15 classes, we were able to get them up to that standard. And I've never seen that kind of progression before. Now, could be that we had a group of awesome students who maybe had a lot of background in sports and racket sports or something like that, or drumming, and they were able to pick that up fast. Could have been that extra 15 minutes where, you know, it just needed that little boost at the end. Could have been the 3 times a week, or it could have been something to do with the curriculum, how I was teaching it pedagogically. That's the problem. I can't say any of that because we can't test any of that. I'd love to test it all. I'd love to spend my entire life. I've already talked about this with Dr. Sean Mullin. We're going to come up with a study where we go around the world and I teach seminars. And while I'm teaching the seminars, 2 people drop out and then go get tested by the neuroscientist and then come back in, and we collect just tons of data. And that's what we do for the rest of our lives, traveling the world, teaching Kali. That'd be fantastic. But, you know, life happens. You have kids and somehow we don't have the money to do that. We need serious funding for that kind of stuff. But I'd love to be able to do that. And there is stuff coming out. He's working on some great stuff. And people are paying more attention to martial arts now, not just from typically all the studies you'll see are Tai Chi and Taekwondo, but people are going, oh, wow, martial arts includes these kind of really kind of obscure things that we've never seen before. And we're going to look into studying them.
You know, Paul, it'd be interesting, especially because, I'm a senior citizen now, right? And so I really believe martial arts really helps, not physically, but mentally. Again, the motions that we do help the brain, and it creates new pathways. So I just had a student, a great guy. He's been doing he used to do old school martial arts, and he loves training. He texted me and said, "Hey, I think I might be dropping out," because I do the Zoom classes with him, and I flew back, did a workshop, and I said, "Well, what's up?" He goes, "Man, I was just hurting from the seminar. It was like a 2-hour seminar, right?" I go, "Al," "Listen, man, you really need to stick with it." Because he goes, well, I walk, I do this and that. I go, "It's not about that. It's really about, training this and keeping that going, because, it's like my mom, you're going to be in great physical shape, but, it's had to say, but there's really nothing here. I mean, she can't remember anything. And I that scares me. I don't want to be that way. It's like I told my wife, I said, I just don't want to be where, I don't remember things. And so I encouraged him to keep going. I said, look, when I met, when I did an interview, a podcast with Taki Kimura, when he was 82, and my wife and I, this is when I was riding Harley. So we rode up there. I took my equipment. We interviewed him, and I was just amazed how sharp he was. I mean, great, physical shape, but his mind, Ron, I mean, the stories and going back and being able to articulate so well. And she was like, wow. I go, I want to be like that at 82. And we'll look at Guro Dan, right? I mean, look at all the people that train, or Wally J, when he was pushing 90, how sharp they were.
Yeah, martial arts is going to do it. Diana's grandmother on her mom's side, she lived into her late 90s, but she read a book a day. And she used to get on Diana and myself, and she'd be like, "You have to exercise your mind." And the way I link it back to Kali, even martial art is just that exercising of learning something new. There are new routes. You have to pick up a person's pattern. If they're off, that's got to be on. It's just, to me, you're just exercising your mind instead of being static, watching television or something where you let something else just carry you the whole time. This keeps you functional, keeps you active. I mean, outside of, I think, reducing stress and letting the world go, because I know every time I glove up, and if I'm thinking about what bill I didn't pay, I get punched in the face a couple of times, all of a sudden I'm not thinking about that anymore. And I'm in that state of mind. So it puts me in that place. I wanted to bring up one story, and I think I mentioned this with you, Paul, was there was a student of Guro Dan's, and he had a stroke. You remember the story? And
I believe the guy, is it Tucci's student out of West Virginia or out of Virginia?
Yeah.
I've heard the story. Yeah.
And Guro Dan had brought 4 sticks to the hospital, and people were like, "What are you doing?" And he just went in there, and Guro sat next to the bed and handed them a couple sticks, and he started to make them go over, like, Heaven 6 seems to be the topic of the day, but Heaven 6, but he was that left, right brain. And even though he had the stroke, he started burning in, I guess, new pathways or relinking, or I don't know how it would work. But I heard his recovery skyrocketed after he did this. I heard doctors are now looking into that and, doing studies. Hopefully they're funded, not like, what you went through. But I believe the benefits are infinitely great. I'm sure we haven't even touched skimmed the surface of what it can do for you. And I think it's great that you're doing it, that you're bringing it to light. Out of everybody I know, and I know a lot of people, you are kind of going places with this that I think no one's gone yet. Maybe they have, maybe somebody else has done it and I really don't know, but not to not bringing it to the public the way you're doing it. And I think it's awesome. That's why I had to have you on. So
I appreciate it. Yeah. A couple of things I'll say on that. First off, I think as far as me bringing it to light, I think the perfect storm. I'm very fortunate to work at UCLA. Those 4 letters are very well respected. And obviously I did the TED talk at UCLA, and TED is very well respected. As far as folks doing it, absolutely, there's people doing it, and you're all doing it. You're doing the stuff. Maybe you just don't know the academic terms for it,
Sure.
or you've not doing it. That's all I've kind of done, is connected 2 worlds. So I don't want to take all the credit for it, because this stuff has been happening, like you said, for a while. But connecting those 2 worlds, because I'm lucky enough to be in that position, is all I take credit for.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not going to put anybody else. I mean, obviously I want to applaud everybody who's doing it, but people say the father of martial arts mixed martial arts is Bruce Lee. Is he really? Did other people mix it? I'm sure they did, but who made it known to the world? That was that man. Right now, otherwise we'd all be kind of like way back in the Stone Age. I feel that you're with TED Talk, with UCLA, with your pushing this, even you agreeing to be here today, hopefully is introducing this to a person who's never even thought of it or heard of it. So we're sparking stuff. And I think you're the spark. Hopefully some other flames get going from it. So I really
like, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. I like being the spark, and then everyone's going to take it on. That's the idea behind it. Is I want it to kind of progress. I've been trying to grow it myself. You know, obviously it's my business. It's a little bit of a livelihood for me. I'm very fortunate to have kept my full-time job during COVID. So it's not, you know, I'm not relying on it for finances, but obviously it's a big part of that. But the idea is to grow it. Yeah, go ahead, Flip. Sorry.
We got away from this topic. We got away from this, and I was trying to figure out a way to segue into it. But I'm going to show you a photo right now, and you were talking about bigger guys and just really applying this. Will this stuff work? Stress testing, and so is this picture showing through to you guys?
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Now I want you to look at this man, and everybody knows who he is, but I want you to look at the man coming at him. Okay. He is, I think, really 6'6", or I don't know his true height. Bent over, he's still taller than my father-in-law, than Dan Inosanto. And this was when I talked to him about this photo, and it's at the Academy. It's nothing new for you guys. I know you guys have seen it, but when I show this photo to people, they cannot believe that he was not manhandled by him. That Inosanto truly controlled that. Do I have you back? Yeah, I got you back.
Right. Yeah, we're back. Yeah.
I've got tons of photos from the Cowboys. I want to put this. I'm going to put you through a couple of them. So just bear with me for a second. I'm sorry to do this to you. And this is from a lot of photos that I have. So I'm trying to do this clean.
What I love about this photo right there, that one before, is that from a combative point of view. Can you go back to that one, Ron, for me?
Sure.
So just looking from a combative point of view, the guy on the right is in trouble, like knowing Guro Dan, like he's overextended. Guru's already got the chop down. I think he's probably just doing a swim or a chop through, like those old moves. But you can see Guru's like on his toes, center of gravity's right underneath him. You know, it's true Guro, and the other guy is kind of like reaching out there, and you could almost see like a lapsow happening, and him falling on his face and that kind of thing. So I love that, how it's captured that.
I actually use photos like this a lot. I'm like, I know football's not fighting, but it's damn near it. You still have a 300-pound-plus guy trying to throw you to the ground, and you've got to get past him. And some people call it the little brother of war, you know, playing football, you know, or you're the little brothers of soldiers. I mean, they literally do use like a lot of battlefield technology or at least planning strategy in it. And with that, I mean, I look at just the size difference and where he brought this. I'm going to click through just a couple of these for you to see. Okay. There's Larry Hartzell with Randy White. Now, just the crossover training, I'm hoping you'll jump in. Are these things that you're doing with your athletes?
We're not doing the football team anymore. We had a change of head coach, and the current head coach wasn't as open-minded, I guess, as the old head coach. So we stopped it.
It doesn't even have to be football. Is this something that you would give to one of your athletes? Like I heard Dr. Mark Chang was training, I think, skaters, and he started putting them in stick work. I'm sure you probably know more about that than me. So I'm looking at this, the benefits of it. I know cardio is there for it, but I'm wondering in a cognitive way, would this benefit of an athlete to cross training?
Depends. So this is where, this actually falls into my basket of, I've been a coach for a while. My first degree was in coaching, the sports science, and then coaching and teaching and things like that. So you take me to a team, like a good example is the water polo team. I didn't know water polo was really violent under the water. I thought it was, all I saw was what you see, right? So they came to me, they're like, hey, we'd love you to train the team. And I'm like, you having trouble swimming? Like, what do you need me for? And they showed me some video of what happens underneath. And I was like, oh yeah, I can help you. yeah, I can see that. So, but then it was still, I had to really drill down, because let's use Heaven 6. You take Heaven 6, and that can really speed up your hands, and it can improve your reaction time to a stimulus. It can give you good rhythm, and it can give you a great cardio workout, and can give you muscular endurance and muscular strength. But it's not very specific to what they needed. Like I'm not going to take some template program out and just hand it into a team, even between two teams. If I speak to a coach for the UCLA water polo team and then the USC water polo team, who we just beat, by the way, in the we are national champions right now. We just beat USC in the finals. I'd just like to say that again. We just beat USC in the finals. There's a little rivalry there.
Oh yeah.
But if they found out and they hired me and wanted to pay me lots of money, I'd probably go over there and I would take a completely different approach, because their coach is going to be different, their players are going to be different. With these kinds of players, you're going to have to deal with folks who are don't believe in it very much. Had to deal with that with the football players a lot. They saw me basically quite a short English white guy, and like they did not respect me. I had to prove myself a little bit. I had to put a couple of them on the ground, which I've probably got a torn shoulder because of that. I got them there, but I paid for it. So it's understanding specificity, which is a huge training principle you got to take in there. And so when I was training the football team, absolutely there was some reaction time stuff. Yeah, you need to be faster, and we're going to do reaction time drills. But within those drills, I would drip the cognitive Kali or the methodology. I'd be like, yeah, we're doing a reaction time drill, but I'm going to throw an interruption in there and see how well you adapt, because that's processing speed.
Let me show you another.
Oh, let me see.
I don't sure. You got to remember, this is the 70s. So
great tank tops.
But yeah. But I mean, look at that. This is a football team. And this is Inosanto's influence on football, which is just amazing. There's a whole correlation that people should look at, but regardless if you're into Filipino martial arts or not. But there was a man named Amos Alonzo Stagg, and football fans might know that name. There's a stag field in almost every city in America now. And I used to think it stood for a deer, a stag. And it's this man, Amos Alonzo Stagg. And he was considered, again, like Bruce Lee, the grandfather of football. And he was forced retired in his 90s. He ended up searching the country, trying to get into a college to teach. They wouldn't take him. He found a high school / I think they had college classes there, but Stockton High School. And his first day there, the coach is introducing him to the whole team. And, like, this is Joey, this is Chuck, this is whatever. And he goes, this is Danny. And he looked at me, he goes, too light, too small, can't use him. And they go, you need to see him run. And a lot of people didn't realize that my father-in-law was, I think, a 1/10 of a second off the world record on the 100-yard dash in his day. And he's seen him run, he's seen him kick, and Stagg was like, a lot of power in those little legs. I could use him. And he kind of became the teacher's pet in a way. But the reason I got to this is the kicking shield that we all know today in martial arts indirectly came from Amos Alonzo Stagg. He's the guy who invented the tackling shield in football. And Guro Dan had brought it to Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was like, we could use this thing. We're evolving. And it became the norm. So, a big part of the story is that football got him into college. College got him, into the Dallas Cowboys eventually, after the whole Bruce Lee connection. But, Inosanto, my wife has written, I don't know if you guys know this, my wife wrote a script called Way of the Cowboy. She co-wrote it, and the story was by her. And in it, they go into, it goes into this whole Stagg connection. And with Inosanto, with Guro Dan Inosanto, he came over and we were watching all these NFL games together, and we actually got all the Dallas Cowboy films from the years that he helped. And we were trying to find where the Junfan and the Kali and the Thai and all the influences were in it. And it's really hard because football follows, or the television follows the ball, not the player as much. So you'll get a glimpse of it. So I remember watching it, and we caught a few things that he was like telltale signs. But I had met a couple of football coaches through my years of doing this, and football players of, like training martial arts people around the world. And it's funny around the world because I've met more in Canada. They're living up in like Vancouver now, ex-players and coaches. And when I got with them, a lot of the things that we do are in football, but they don't even know it's from Filipino martial arts. But that's the one thing is we watch training films mid 70s, and they weren't doing a lot of the things they're doing after it. And that's that Inosanto influence. So it's got to be, you know, I don't know if it's a direct relation to the way what steered you in that path, or if you started to come up with a little bit of new ideas. I know I'm rambling on, but I just want your idea on this.
Well, you know, I'm gonna tie in two things. I'm gonna tie into what you were talking about, Cliff, about the concerns that you have, because I think they match. And that kind of triggered was that picture of the Kali. I think it looks like they're doing either standard 6 or something like that. Cognitive reserve. So, Cliff, that's the term I want you to kind of really look at. Is what we're looking at from a neuropsych disorder perspective with this movement. And I'll give you a quick example. We're all going to decline cognitively. We're all going to have cognitive decline as we age. And really, if you, from a very simple point of view, cognitive decline is your brain shrinks, right? You lose connections and you lose mass. And so that's going to happen naturally to everyone. What happens is potentially there's either a genetic predisposition to things like Alzheimer's and dementia, possibly a stroke, possibly TBIs, which are traumatic brain injuries, where instead of this line being your cognitive decline, suddenly now we're on a much steeper decline. And so if we use some real simple numbers, say everyone's got 100 cognition, right, or whatever, 100 cognitives. And as you decline over 10 years, you're now at 90, now you're at 80 or 70. Once you hit 50, you're no longer able to look after yourself, right? You can't remember things and you have to go into care. Now, what cognitive reserve is if you live a life where you read a book every day, where you do different movements, where you drive to work a different way every day. It doesn't have to be martial arts or even sports. It's just new things, it's challenging things. Then maybe you can bump that 100 cognition up to 120, 130, 140, 150. So then it doesn't matter. It matters less how quickly you're declining. You're going to have a longer period of time with a higher quality of life. There's no cure for Alzheimer's. There's no cure for dementia. In 30 years' time, there'll be 14 million people living with it in the US. And 30 years' time for me is I'll be in my 70s. So it's a pandemic. It's an epidemic right now. We're in a pandemic. That's an epidemic. So that's on that side of it. There's that. Now with the sports, it's the opposite side. We've all got 100 cognition, but we want to beat the next team, so we better be at 150. It's the same goal, right? We want to be better, sharper. Yeah, sure. Like at high-level sports, Cliff, you tell me the same. Everyone's really strong, right? High-level sprinting, everyone's really fast. What makes the difference between that 1/10 of a second of the Olympics and things like that? And it's all up here. It's not physical. It's either sports psych or it's cognitive. That's why there's so much money being put into it right now, into brain health. And what I look at is when you learn these different movements, like it's like Guro tells a story all the time. How many times you see football players do the tires or the fast ladder, the agility ladder, right? How many times are there tires on the pitch? How many times do they have to do this on the pitch? Never. But it's developing attributes, but it's also developing what I like to refer to as the spider web. And if we think about this in cognition as well, the spider web. So Cliff, talking about kind of like someone who's had a stroke or a traumatic brain injury where, you know, they were able to do Heaven 6 really easily. Boom, 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 boom. They get a hit on the head and it messes up the neural system, right? Now that pathway no longer exists. It's broken. So if the only way you knew how to do Heaven 6 was in this manner, and that's just broken, you're going to have to relearn it. But if you knew Heaven 6, where's my sticks? You know, you go through the matrix. You know Heaven 6. You know Standard 6. You know Redondo 6. You know Back 6. You know Cob into 6. You know Abanico 6. You know Floretti 6. That's, to me, that's creating the spider web. So if your spider web was simply a circle with a cross in the middle and you lose this quarter, there's no way to get there, right? But if you've got the fully intricate movement spider web, then you're like, oh, I can't go that path anymore. It's okay, I'll go this way. Like for me in Los Angeles, if you've ever seen the old movie LA Story with Steve Martin, there's a scene in that where he's stuck in traffic, right? and he comes off and he takes an alleyway and he goes around the houses and he drives through someone's yard and they hand him coffee. I remember that scene distinctly. If you don't remember it, it's in the movie. But I do that all the time in LA. Ron, do you do that? Like I don't sit on the 405. There's no, if I see it backing up, I come off and I take the side streets.
You have to hit
right?
the roads, yeah.
That you have to take side streets. So that's what I'm talking about. If all you know to get to Orange County from here is 405, and that gets blocked, stroke TBI, you're stuck.
It's a lot like watching Lomachenko. Have you watched his training?
Oh, I mean, well, have you seen the video of him doing the brain training?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
It's fantastic. Yeah. And it's just beautiful to watch. You know why? Because it's unorthodox. You watch boxers, they all kind of move the same way. Cliff, you watch football players, and I've seen this from old footage as well, kind of move the same way. Lomachenko gets in there, and it's boxing, right? It's still the same stuff, but he looks a little different, right? It's like weird. I don't know if you guys remember Prince Nazeem Hamed.
Oh yeah.
I mean, we'll take his ego and just put that over there. He was an incredibly skillful boxer, and it was totally different. Like, what's he doing? Like, you can't do that. Muhammad Ali was the same. He went out there with hands down. They were like, you can't box with your hands down. Which he can. He's the only one that can, right? And then Nazeem was the same, right? Put his chin out there. Silva. We can talk about athletes like this all the time. People who broke the mold. This is the way you do things, and you get out there. Yeah, Cliff.
Paul, so ways, again, to build up that cognitive reserve. How do you feel? Like, I think trapping drills that we do, or like Hubud, it always introduces different pathways. You know what I mean? Because someone does a little something different, and now you have to respond to that. Are those good exercises to do, as well as, like, doing a double stick drills, things like that?
Everything's good, and so I like to kind of step outside of the martial arts world, or almost those terms. And what trapping will give you that's different than kind of like anything else is that fast-paced tactile stimulus, right? If you try to watch and block a hand, like if you're in close quarter, even like Chisao, sticky hands, Hubud with play, right, where you're trying to like score some points and things like that. If you try to visually see what's happening and stop it, what's going to happen? You're going to get nailed. You have to be able to use your tactile sense. And that's slightly different than, let's say, boxing, because that's visual. It's all visual, right? The punch is coming towards you, visual stimulus, OODA loop stuff. I move and I do whatever counter and things like that. That's your visual stimulus. With the sticks, you've also got, there's a tactile, right? Because there's that impact. That's a tactile feedback. You've also got audible. So that how many times have you kind of jumped, right? When you've been doing the drill, you're doing the drill, and it's click, 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 and you miss a beat, or hopefully not, you hear the click, click, thump, and that means you hit someone's hand, and it messes you up here because there's an audible change, and your brain's like, that's not supposed to be like that. So all of those things, we're taking it outside the martial arts world: visual stimuli, audible stimuli, tactile stimuli. Doing all of that is fantastic. That's why I think a study on jiu-jitsu is going to be fantastic, because with jiu-jitsu, how many pathways are there? Every single little shift of weight, and there's a whole new set of pathways, and you shift that way, there's a whole new set of pathways. He tries to go for the armbar, and the very high level people, which doesn't include me, I like watching it. Like Jean-Jacques Machado, when he comes to the academy, you see him and he's 43 moves ahead. Oh, you're going to go for that armbar? It means I'm going to choke you out in about 5 minutes and 46 seconds, because he knows the pathway of what's going to happen, right? And so it's beautiful to watch that. And that's, again, it creates those pathways, but that's dependent on the stimulus. So tactile stimulus, fantastic. Audible stimulus, visual stimulus, all very, very good. And then it's a matter of, are you increasing the complexity? That's the hypothesis of my program, is that increased complexity will enhance cognitive function better than rote movement. Now, I'm saying that, but you have to have the rote. You can't have increased complexity until you learn it, which means you have to do it rote. You have to do it over and over and over and over again. But if you never go past that, then you're not going to get it, which is, I'd be interested to do a study against like super high level bicyclists, right? Bikers, or super high, like marathon runners. They're really, really good at what they do. But what they do is it's one motor skill over and over and over again, compared to someone who does very complex dancing, very complex martial arts, very complex sports. That'd be a cool study to see. And you do a pre and post, or you do hey, everyone's been doing it for 20 years. Whose brain is bigger, or something like that.
Yeah, I had a.
How,
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a student who raced cars and more like indie type, and he used to tell me that the decision making that he had to make while driving amplified actually a lot more after his training with us in class. It was at the time it was Simon Ree, Simon Ree, myself. And John Payne, and he would race cars, and he just said that how he would utilize the decision making that he would make. You made me think about it with like sticks and then changing the patterns about this car's coming this way, and just how, I mean, I think about it every day when I'm driving. Is that kid going to run across the street in front of me? Is this light going to change? Is that guy see me? Is that tire going to, I mean, whatever. There's a million decisions we make while driving. And I could see the way that you could utilize a lot of your training or the way that you're using to amplify somebody into even everyday life. So
that's the biggest thing for, especially for D-line, is that what we're going to call that processing speed, right? Being able to take an information, process it, and come out with decisions or actions. Processing speed. So with the D-line, now I don't know much about this but 70s, 80s, and things like that. You would see linemen that were just really big. They weren't necessarily very talented sports people, right? They were very, very large, and that's why they were hired. Now, if I'm totally wrong on this, because it's probably coming mostly from the movies for me, but that's what they were, and they were kind of like the front line of the military, right? Grunts, I think, or with England, it was we would wear red coats and just kind of like stroll into gunfire and then get shot. That's how we fought wars until the Americans showed us that that wasn't a very good way to do it. Well, you weren't Americans at the time; you were colonials. But anyway, that's another topic. So why not put, like, instead of just like these people on the line, why not put special forces on the line so that they can deal with the big person? They can run off and catch and receive and get a touchdown. Cassius Marsh did that once for us. He was a lineman and peeled off. And I'm seeing that with more hybrid players in football. And I think that's key. And that's coming down to this decision making. If all of your attention is on getting the offensive lineman's hands off you, or not letting the offensive lineman, if that's where all your attention is, you don't know whether it's a running play. You don't know whether it's a throwing play. You don't know where the ball is, because you've got a single job and you're just good at that job. Imagine if you're able to just watch the play like we are able to. You can deal with hands. Oh no, he's going. I don't even need to deal with you anymore. I'm going to take him out because he's going.
The blinders off. Yeah,
take the blinders off. Absolutely, and that comes from this type of training.
And that's what I found working with players and offensive linemen and defense, is the fact that when you're doing Sinwali and you're moving side to side and you're watching, it gives them different patterns than, like you say, just boom right here with this
exactly
player trying to pass me, and you could see it. You could see how they would improve on that. But what I found out, like, was you said that sometimes you get a coach who's supportive, and when they're like, well, they're worried because that doesn't how we done things in the past, and the players are going, you got to listen to him, man. He's got some good stuff. And the offensive line coach would be, old school, right? So
yeah, I never got through the offensive line coach. It was always D-line for me.
There's an interesting book. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, Sharpening the Warrior's Edge by Bruce Siddle. Have you ever?
I don't know. No.
Look it up. He was an underwater diver, and he realized that his reflexes were way faster underwater than on land. And he was like, why? And I'm not giving anything of the book away. It's still worth the read. Yeah. But it ended up, he started saying, I have this mask on, and half the information I have to process on dry land was out of there. So he was almost putting himself in tunnel vision by having the goggles. So he wanted to sharpen his edge out of water. And it's his whole journey of taking that information or that thought and just running with it. It's a good book. Check it out. I think it's a good read.
That's really interesting, because you would immediately think by putting that on, it would slow down, right? Because you're putting the blinders on. But actually, because he had less information to process, it becomes faster. Yeah, I never thought of that. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Remember, we had this conversation, Ron, because I'm legally blind in one eye, so my depth perception he's got depth perception. So if I I was terrible at basketball because I could, I'm thinking, okay, that's where it is, right? But I'm off. However, in martial arts, I mean, I can hit a stick, get this close to someone's eye, or, what makes it different, that the fact that we have good depth perception when we spar or do stick training or knife training, but yet I can't throw a ball and hit a hoop.
I think, this is the second piece. Like I told you, my hypothesis is progressively complex movement enhances cognitive function better than well learned. That's my hypothesis because it's backed up by science. That's why I've got it as a hypothesis. I also have a theory, which I've not been able to research. I actually spoke to a neuropsychology doctor on Monday. I presented to her Pepperdine class, and I asked her this question, and she was like, okay, I'm going to look into this. And my theory is that deep brain stuff, right? Our reptilian brains, the brains that existed when we were, cavemen fighting off saber-toothed tigers. That's probably the wrong period, but whatever. We were fighting off for our lives. And that's where fight or flight comes from. It comes from our reptilian brain. Cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine, adrenaline, those are fighting chemicals. My theory is if you can effectively work while those chemicals are present, it enhances your learning, because that's the only way we survived, right? That's the only way we are a species as advanced as we are, is because we adapted. And my theory is because of something about those chemicals in the bloodstream, obviously the brain is fed by the blood, has helped us enhance our learning. Not just reaction time in the moment, but like, hey, oh, that worked and I'm alive, clunk, evolution. Like thousands of years, clunk, evolution. Fire, evolution. We've done these things, and I think that's the case. Now, the problem with that is that having constant cortisol and apparently these chemicals are not healthy for you constantly. They're there to be used in emergencies. So my theory is that when we train what we do, we're getting just a tiny little drip. There's a little bit of risk there. And because the risk is slightly there, we get a little bit. And then there's that enhanced function, which is why I think the martial arts and doing specifically the Kali, because when a stick's coming towards your head, you're in a height, like Ron, you were saying. If you're thinking about your bills, guess what? You're getting hit in the head. Yeah. Like you have to be focused there, right? Amen. So when that's happening and you have a little bit of risk that's not unhealthy for the body in other ways, then we get that enhanced learning. And it's better than doing complex sports or complex dance because they don't have that risk factor. That's my theory. No, neuroscientists of the world, tell me I'm wrong.
I bet you.
I remember doing that.
Even serotonin helps enhance learning. When Ron, you get that high, or Larry, when we're training, and all of a sudden it's like, man, you get that, and all of a sudden you just absorb. I really feel like when I'm in that state, 100%. I learn so much better.
Larry, you got a question?
Yeah, I remember, gosh, I think it was, that's funny actually with this conversation. I think I remember it was 12, 13 years ago, but I had a series of CDs. It was just really phenomenal. And it was on memory and boosting your memory. And at that point, the guy that was narrating it or talking about it,
Harry Lorraine,
he had all these cool drills. Maybe that might have been it. Yeah. He had all these really cool drills, to help the hippocampus release and boost it, so that you could do it. And what's funny is like, I still do a lot of those drills to this day. I mean, I don't have the coffee can with the sponge and the different smells and all that kind of stuff, but I take different routes to go where I need to go. Or I constantly try to shift or change things, which I think might lay in tune a little bit with, like you were saying, like that healthy release of cortisol. It's just that change up all of a sudden, that shift, like you slip a little and you have to adjust and feel that fire, not just in your muscles, but in your brain. And I remember after listening to that, was walking down the street, and it was the first time I felt the tingle. Like, when you're in martial arts, you're just so into the moment, you're moving around. I don't think I ever felt it. But after hearing the talk and then walking down the street, there was some construction in my neighborhood, which never happens. And you could hear the jackhammers and stuff. And literally, it's like my head started tingling just on the top. And I could feel this like release and this just clarity all of a sudden. And I go, that's cool. I need to do that more,
That's really cool. When I run the UCLA martial arts program, we offer free self-defense to all students. And I always hit two books: Meditations on Violence by Sergeant Rory Miller and Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. Yeah. And there's a little section in Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker, which was fantastic. He says, he's talking about gut feeling. Like, what is that? What is that when you have we know what a gut feeling, right? What is that? And he says it's your brain working at its highest level. It's taken on thousands, millions, billions, trillions of pieces of information, And it doesn't have a full answer, doesn't have this is dangerous because of XYZ. It's just like, something's wrong. I'm going to give you this feeling. That's what the brain is doing. That's what gut feeling is. And he says, you never see it. You never see it like in humans, like in animals. The example he gives is that you watch the national, Discovery or National Geographic show, and you got the deer going through the jungle to the water hole, and it freezes, and the hair on the back of it, and it's like this. How many times do you see the deer go, it's probably nothing? Which is what we do all the time, right? Yeah. Because it's life or death for them. And I really like that analogy, because every now and then you get that I like calling it the Spidey sense, because it makes me feel cooler. But you get the tingle and you're like, what is that? And usually what I do is I check what's going on. Immediately the cortisol adrenaline, you feel it. So one, talking about flow state in the zone, you need to temper that, because if it goes too high, you won't be able to perform. That's the freeze of the fight, flight, or freeze. And then two, like, okay, I usually take a step back and I try to really broaden my gaze. Like, what's made me feel like that? Oh, it's because that person looked at me funny, and they're over there now, and it's fine. Like, I really drill down and find out what gave me the feeling first.
Yeah.
So that's more like in the self-defense world thing.
That's really cool. All right, guys, I think we're close to our hour. So give us some info. How can we help you out?
Well, I'm gonna tag on to the end of Guro Larry's thing there about methods of memory, because that's what I really incorporate into my programs, and I've got these online programs going on right now. And the big one is coding, and two are coding and chunking. We code all the time, right? Heaven 6, right? That's a code. We know it means this thing. Or angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, angle 4, whatever system it's in. We code all the time, even if it's Labtic, Wittig, Floretti, or what was the LeMayco term, Floretti, Guru, I learned? Freiler, yeah, I've been working that, trust me, because that hit my brain. So that's coding. That means you have to process something. Now with that, you can start to chunk things. And the best way to explain this is how we chunk our phone numbers. 334 typically in the US, right? We do it differently in the UK, but 334. And that's because our short-term memories can only hold about 5 to 7 pieces of information. So it's easier to chunk information. So those are two examples of what we use like in my online course right now, it's available, original Kali drills. Takes a bunch of the Cabaret 1 series from Grandmaster Estelia, a bunch of the 6-count stuff, and I probably should remember what else is in there, but there's other stuff in there. Maybe some Abecedario, I can't remember. But basically, we have the basic drills and the videos, and I've got it at 50% speed, so you can watch it slowly. And then there's a bunch of what I call cognitizations. Now, I checked with Oxford Dictionary. It's not a real word, but I made it up. Cognitizations are like, how can you make this more complex? And how can you do that progressively? So you take the drill that you already know, and then you overlay these training methodologies on it. So that's the kind of stuff we're putting out right now on cognitivekali.online, which if you want to do some pre-recorded stuff, that's what I'm kind of teaching. Every Sunday at 1 p.m. we do Zoom classes. We've got some great people coming in and been training with us for a while. And that's what I'm currently doing to try to expand this world, hopefully to get a few instructors licensed and certified so that they can expand it better.
Please send me
for our viewers,
my social media also for you.
Yeah, I wanted to add, if you're watching this and you want to get a copy of Ron's Jeet Kune Do book, Ron, do you have it right there? Can you show it?
Oh, wait, yes, I still have it here.
Yes. So listen, I mean, I know some of you have the hard copy, but having a PDF file, like I told my students, it's great to have it on your phone. You're watching it, you can kind of study it. So it's kind of a cool addition. It retails for $24.95. It's still on sale for Amazon, and you can get it for free. And that's all you got to do is, Larry, you put a link in there, right? In the comment section. Yeah. So there you can just click it, and
just to reiterate, it's on the concepts of Jeet Kune Do. It's principles of a complete fighter. It doesn't mean I'm a complete fighter, but with somebody like a Paul or with an Inosanto, I think he gives you the tools to be able to solve the problems that you want. And that's what I'm going into in the book. In a way, it is, without saying cognitive, it is. How can I be about, the fight is within myself, not somebody else. How can I be a better martial artist today? And the principles are there. And I try to spell it out the best I know it. And that's why, I mean, I thought of you, Paul, with this is, I think you could bring somebody to another level. We all know that we could teach motions by rote, and I could put it out there. I think that you have a unique way for somebody to be able to call them out in a situation, in a high stress situation, for it to come out. We've all had those experiences. Like I have fights, whatever fights I've had, and I had them recorded, and I'll do something in the fight and I go, God, I don't remember doing that. But what does that come out by? It comes out by rote. And hopefully it came out because I've done something so much, it's cognitive. And I think that you really explain it well, to where I think it'll bring a martial artist to another level. So
I appreciate that.
So,
Is there time for a quick story?
sure.
Yeah, I just ask Larry one thing before you go. Larry, can you direct our audiences to some of our forums that they can sign up for, and our group page? Let them
Yes,
know
sir.
where that's at and the name of it.
Yes, sir.
So I don't think I've ever told Guro Ron this story, so I'm going to embarrass him right now. But the first time I ever saw Silat, and I'll tell you what, it might have been a VHS. Sorry, Ron, but it might have been a DVD. It was my my instructor showed it to me, and I saw some of the sweeps, and I just thought it was, again, going from standard striking to Kali and seeing that this is totally different. And that's the first time I saw you, Guro Ron, was on that DVD.
Oh, wow.
The second time I saw you, I don't know if you remember this, but a good friend of mine, one of my old instructors, Guru Keith Davis, was having a baby. Wife's having a baby shower, and we were going to watch a UFC fight. And I arrived, I think it was in the Valley somewhere. I arrived at the house, and I walk up to the house, and in front of me is this couple and a small boy. And we get to the door, and they rang the doorbell, and they turn around, and it's Guro Ron and Diana and their son. And I was a little bit like, I wasn't expecting to be starstruck, but I was like, oh shit, that's Diana and Guro Ron, like in my head. And I think all I said was hello, like in my head, I'm going, oh my God. And the whole time, Guro Ron, you probably don't remember this, but the whole time I was sitting over here with Candace Coffey, who has unfortunately passed away, may rest in peace.
Oh, yeah.
And I kept saying to her, do you think, can I get a photo? Can I get a photo with Ron? Do you think I can get and the whole time, I think she was getting annoyed with me. She's like, yeah, I'll just introduce you. Like, everyone else knew you, right? And you were just this kind of like person to me. So eventually we got that photo, and I did the usual, arm around, and you put your fist out, put my fist out. And I was like, oh, this is going to be great. I get home and I open my phone, I look at the photo, and instead of like me looking like some kind of martial artist, I look like a giddy schoolboy. I'm so happy to have met you. So I've never told that live. I wanted to tell you, you've been a big impact on me. So I appreciate you having me on the show, sir.
No. You're running with the ball. I really appreciate what you're doing. And that's why, you're our first guest, dude. You're
number
one.
Wow.
So
I didn't know that. Well, thank you. In order.
But I think what you did, and I can't wait to see where the next 5-10 years brings you. So it's going to be badass. It is. And
it's going to be fun.
I appreciate it. And that picture, that and about $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks. So, no, I appreciate it. I've got a gazillion pictures. I got ones with that, like with Clip. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to see last week's episode, but it's going to be online. I just want you to watch. Cliff, to me, and he predates me, and I always looked at him like this, like freaking machine. And if you see a younger Cliff, it was the same way. It was just he was bigger than life, and he was bringing it. And some people, it's so funny because unfortunately, martial arts can be way political. We all know that politics everywhere. You put 3 people in a room, there's going to be politics, just like there's 4 here, and I'm sure we could start it up. But I always wanted to give somebody that chance, and because I've heard the positive and negative about myself, probably about almost every one of us in this room. I've heard somebody give a yay or nay about, and I'm always going to try to judge somebody on their own merit and the way they treat me. And I'm so happy that you and I have been able to maintain a really good relationship with each other.
Oh, I appreciate it too.
And I think I'm profiting by it. It's really cool to have you on. I want to have you again. And I think the guys agree with me. Anytime you want to come on, let me know. And if you got something to say, something to sell, tell me right away. I'm going to push it for you.
10 more years, you'll be up here and you'll have to help us out with our memories.
Yeah, exactly.
Give us more drills.
Okay. How do we make it more complex? That's I've always, I've thought about throwing challenges out there. Like, for people like you, like, can I trip you up? That's the thing. It's like, could I make it so complex that I could trip you up? I think it'll be tough. I'd love to try.
Oh God, I'd love to do it. It'd be embarrassing, but fun. But I mean, yeah, I'm always up for it. And I'm sure, I'll steal from you. I'm going to tell you right now.
Oh, please. Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's, I'll do it respectfully, but I mean, if it's something good, man, I'm gonna run with it, and I'm gonna try.
Oh,
to
yeah.
Out of it.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's the big thing is if someone takes some drill or methodology that I've done and uses it, and I have a bit of a substance. I train Daniel in the TED Talk with cerebral palsy. I've got a guy with Parkinson's as a client right now. I think this would have greater effects on folks who need it. Yes, it's awesome for the sports folks, and that's the cool stuff to do. But I think it's needed more on the other side. So if someone could take something I'm doing and help someone else out, that's fantastic. That's all it needs.
Do you know Hector Solis? Do you know Hector?
Oh yeah, UCLA, right?
Yeah. So Hector just wrote in. He's listening. He said, "I use collie drills for my Parkinson's class." So
wow.
So it's awesome. So he's onto something too. He's an awesome martial artist, and it's just to hit some of the comments. Everybody's loving this. A lot of people want to go scuba dive in MMA, and
awesome.
Today on here. So
thank you. I appreciate it.
Norman Taylor, great TED Talk, saw it. Everybody's loving you on here, and we want you back, brother. So
we'll reach out, on Facebook, Cognitive Carly, post a comment, post a video. Like, I'd love to see people doing things. And like, hey, we made this adaptation or modification. Post the videos. That's how we're going to grow it, right? Everyone keeps posting what they're doing at these methodologies, and then it can grow a little bit more.
All right, man. Well, you got a home here. If you want to share more, we want you back. So
thanks for sharing, Paul. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go celebrate my my son's 3rd birthday today, so I got to get this place ready. Yeah, wow, we got presents.
Almost an April Fool's birthday. Wow.
That was the due date, and I was like, oh man. Actually, April Fool's is that's my anniversary for my Taekwondo black belt test. Couldn't believe they put it on April Fool's. Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to mention a couple things real quick before we sign out. Not to bring a bummer to what you just said about birthdays. Thank God we have a life. Today was the day with Brandon, so just wanted to bring that out. And
didn't know that.
With respect to him, yeah. And I'll always remember it because I knew Brandon when he was in Chicago at Rapid Fire. I got to spend time with him, and we went out pre-Diana, partying, chasing girls, stuff like that. It was fun. I was driving to California to move here after I left the sheriff's department. So I'm driving from Chicago out here, and I hear on the radio that he passed, and I kind of went, I thought, is an April Fool's thing going on? And in every April Fool's, I think of that day, and it's a little sad, but it's to the point now where you kind of want to just look at him and have a nice smile because he was such a cool human being and a big light in the martial arts. It's a hard shoe to fill, being Bruce Lee's son. He did it really, really eloquently. It was beautiful watching this guy. Everything about him was just cool, and it was energy. It was like you got that sense that his dad was alive in him, and it was really beautiful. But the other thing I want to bring some attention to is all this. I don't know how else to put it, but I'm gonna just say it. Watch out for our Asian family out there. I think it's a bad time, and they're getting getting a bad rap, and they're getting a lot of like hate towards them. And I think it's really misplaced hate, and it has no place in America. So with that, I'm going to leave it up to you guys, and I'm going to close this out. So anything else?
Hey, thanks for all you out there they're viewing and watching here. We appreciate your support, and always feel free to share it. The more people see it, the more we can grow, the more we can have some amazing guests like Paul in, and we're kind of excited. So thank you.
Yeah.
Larry?
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, as well.
All right, guys.
Absolutely. Thank you. You guys get a chance to tune in and stay tuned, because I know Guru Ron's got some release dates. The big thing is you guys are doing a fundraiser for Salim, correct? It's you, Freddie Jen, and Nikolai Sonyak.
Yeah. That if you could spread the word, Paul, I love it.
I'm getting my calendar out. When is that?
Yeah. What is it? Saturday is the 10th of April. If for those who don't know, Professor Salim Asli, he was in an accident, really serious one. He's hurt, but he needs some help. So we're doing a fundraiser for him. So I have Professor Nikolai Sunyak, and then I have Sifu Freddy Jin, and then myself. We're going to donate an hour each, and we're going to have that flyer out in a day or two. But it'll the donations will go directly to him, and you'll get a link to the Zoom website to take the seminar with us. And it's going to start at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and it'll be 1 hour class, each one of us, 3 hours long. We'll give a little break in between it, but yeah, hopefully we can get some funds and help him out.
What's the time of that, Ron?
9 a.m. Pacific time it starts. So I believe it starts with Professor, no, it's going to start with Sifu Freddy Jin.
Freddy Jin.
Be on for an hour. We'll give like a 15-minute break. I'm going to jump on. I'm going to do Lameko for an hour. And he's doing boxing and JKD boxing and Kali boxing, Panatukan. And then I got my Lameko thing. And then, of course, Professor Nick with Sabat. And
that'd be great. Yeah.
I mean, anything will help, and we're also going to post the seminar up. So if somebody watches it, or if they can't make the date, if they still donate, they'll have access to all that video. Okay. So it's a good cause. We got a brother who's in need, and we gotta come to arms. We gotta.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I saw that he posted recently. So he said thank you to folks. And so he's out of the woods, I hope. And, we just got to make sure he gets back on his feet.
Yeah. He's, he's been kicked to the kicked to the ground a little bit, but he's getting back up, so it's tough. It's tough. I know what it's like, I know we're over, but Cliff was telling you about his one blind eye. Ever since I wear glasses now because I have double vision in this eye, but ever since I had that tumor and it caused a little bit of an aneurysm on me, the fun thing I go through, Paul, is double sticks or double swords or double knives. You and I sparring or working out, even just training. Everything on this side is good. Over here, it turns into 8 sticks.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. So, it's tough. And people are like, well, just wear your glasses. And it helps. But if I'm on a movie or if I'm working out, I can't wear glasses. I got to be here. So my brain has figured out how to process that, where it's at. And it's just, I have some students who suffered my wrath early on before I had the vision thing worked out because I'd be hitting them accidentally. But I've kind of worked that out. And it'd be interesting to get your take on it someday of maybe some of your drills, everything else could help me out even a little bit more. So
yeah, we'll look into it. Definitely. I'll reach out to the neuroscientists for that one, see what's causing it, and then we can reverse engineer it almost.
Yeah, later I could tell you more of what I went through and what they diagnosed happened to me. So yeah. So all right, guys, let's sign it out. So Paul, big bow. Thank you for everything. And
great chatting. Enjoyed it a lot. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks for raising us to the next level. All right. We're on next Wednesday, same time. All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye-bye, guys.
All right.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Be safe, everyone.